talk about this one because it's one of my favorite series, and I had so much fun rereading it to dab it. So that is the completed 4-book dabbing of the Fox Family Crime Syndicate by Summer O'Toole. Fox. I am a Fox girly, and I'm going to talk you through each book in addition to letting you hear all of the super fun dabbing. So the first book in the series is called Make Me, and this is about Cash and Harlow. And Cash is the oldest brother in the Fox family. He's the boss. He takes care of everyone. And Harlow thinks that he is secretly a serial killer who took the life of her best friend, and now she's like stalking him to get vengeance. And she doesn't do a very good job. She's super obvious and a little bit silly, and that is what makes this series so special and unique, is that like they're funny, they are so dark and so like dirty, but they're also hilarious. Like, I have laughed in every single one of these books, but this one especially, like, there's a vibe here that's not like anything else I've ever read. And Cash is drawn to Harlow because he realizes, like, this weird girl in heart-shaped sunglasses is stalking me, and she's super cute, and the fact that she's like stalking him and following him around is all of the appeal to him. He loves it so much, and that's one of the reasons that like Cash is such a fun character. He is probably my second favorite Fox brother, although to be honest, like, after my first favorite Fox brother, they're all just sort of tied for second, because the second book in the series is called Hate Me, and this is my favorite Fox brother. Phineas Fox is wonderful. This is a childhood friends to enemies who are lovers to just lovers story, and I love it so much. Like, this is the perfect friends to lovers story. You will be obsessed. Like, I am obsessed. Because what ends up happening in this book is that right at the beginning, Finn is finally going to make a move on his like lifelong friend crush Effie, except that her family starts a war with his family, and they become enemies no matter how else they feel about each other. So then her family decides they're going to mess with his family again, even though there's a truce, and he uses that as an opportunity to like insert himself back in her life. And yeah, they end up having to get married. It's perfect. It's flawless. But I love everything about Finn Fox. I love a further glimpse of the Fox family that you get in this, like, kissy noises for you. The third book in the series is probably, to me, the most emotionally devastating, and that is Keep Me, which is Roan and Reggie. And Roan is like the broken, silent, brooding brother of the Fox family, and he has to go on protection duty of a ex-cartel princess. So her dad is still the lead of the cartel, but she's left the cartel, except being involved with a Fox kind of pulls her back into the cartel. Like, her dad is not a good person. And don't get me wrong, all of these boys are good bad boys. They do bad things. They are criminals, but they are ultimately good. They try not to do things needlessly, but they're very protective of their family, and that's what it all comes down to. So Roan and Reggie is a forced proximity bodyguard situation, and he's so attracted to her that it makes him really angry, and it's, again, hilarious, absolutely hilarious. So the thing about Roan is that he thinks he's not deserving of feelings or love or having people was just like, rereading this was actually super painful because it is so sad. But he does, the end is wild, and then he does get his happy ending, and that is what makes it a romance book. Then the last book in the series was the hardest for me to read, and I'll tell you why. And it is called Dare Me, and this is the youngest brother, Lachlan, and longtime family friend, Stella, who helps run their bar, the Fox's Den. Like, she is, well, as he points out, she's a Capricorn, like, big time. So Stella and Locke hook up at her birthday, and then he's like, can't let it go, and she wants to pretend like it never happened, and he decides, oh, this is called Dare Me, by the way, he decides that he's not letting Stella go, and he's gonna step up, and he's gonna make her know that he's not the, like, ditzy playboy she believes him to be, and he's not a player, and that all he really wants is her. So he's gonna do all of the work to show her that that's what it is. And so they go off to this island because they're buying this resort, and he goes and plays up his brother Cash, and then there's a murder, and there's a bunch of red herrings on who the murderer is, and the murderer implicates Stella, and it gets super out of hand. This is also a super good revenge story in terms of like someone who did a bad thing experiences brutal revenge for the thing that they did, and honestly, like, they really deserve it. But Dare Me was really hard for me to read because when I got the advanced copy of this, it was right around Christmas, and some really bad stuff was going on in my life. And so weirdly, like, I associate this book with the way that I was feeling at the time, even though the book was a really good escape for me while I was reading it. But it still, like, makes me really emotional to read, and there were things about this one that really stuck with me, that came back to me when I was reading it, and it made me super emotional to read it again, and, like, think about how far I've come with my mental health since this book came out, and I'm not surprised that Summer's part of that at all. This one's also fun for me because I am a person who is married to a guy who's younger than me, and so, like, the older woman, younger man trope always feels like my real life, because you have this idea that, like, the younger guy isn't going to be mature enough, or he's not going to be what you need, but, like, it's so much fun when they prove you wrong about that. So, Dare Me, and Keep Me. My Beloved Hate Me. And the one that started it all, Make Me. So this is the Fox Family Crime Syndicate series by Summer O'Toole. It is so unbelievably good. Every single one of these tabs was worth it, and they're of course semi-color coded to the book. But I love this. I love that I finished this project. All of these books are tabbed and highlighted, and I'll go back in a little bit and move all the tabs further in so they don't stick out like this, but you'll still see this little, like, rainbow of color, which, for an example, this is last week's book, and I have gone in and moved, like, all of the tabs almost all the way in, and so it looks like that, where, like, you can't quite see it head on, and then you look like this and you're like, ooh. So I love it. I love how it looks. But I had the best time rereading this series. I love it. It makes me feel good. And I guess maybe I'll read you some quotes from it. Oh, here's a little piece from Make Me, from Harlow's point of view. And she's talking about something important with Cash. And now it feels like he's handed me a little piece of his heart, a piece he's kept safely hidden behind cruelty and violence, a piece that once knew love and is now, maybe, learning it again. My throat constricts at the thought, because because it's touching or overwhelming. I don't know. Perhaps both. Because she is like so anxious about the feelings she has for this guy that maybe he didn't kill her friend, but she knows he's still a killer. And now I'm going to read something from the prologue of Hate Me that I can tell you is where I knew 2 pages in I belonged to Phineas Fox. And I have no regrets that he's my favorite. So Effie makes a joke that she thinks they're on a date, and he's like, oh my gosh. He says, I mean, I'm not complaining. I've had a thing for her since we were 7 years old. Back then, of course, I just thought she was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen and wanted to hold her hand. But now I can't deny the number of times I've in the shower to the thought of her soft skin, graceful curves, and bone-warming smile. I never considered she might think of me the same way, and that thought makes anxiety roil in my stomach, because I want it to be true. I want it more than anything I can ever remember wanting in my life. The perfect mix of dirty boy and sweet boy right here. Finn Fox, let me tell you. So in Keep Me, because he's a hired bodyguard, there's a conversation with her father that he's not gonna touch Reggie at all. And Reggie's like, yeah, of course not. And they're both liars. Like, they're both liars. It's fine. But later, Reggie is thinking to herself how she nearly kisses Roan. And what does that mean? She says, I was so ready to break my own self-imposed rule. So ready to know if he tastes as smoky and intangible as the storm in his eyes. Does he kiss like he wants to savor every moment? Or does he bite and fight for every second? Would he kiss at all? And you're gonna have to read it to find out. Now Lachlan is kind of dramatic and also a little bit lacking in hope. And so there's a moment where he talks about how he wants to change and why and what it means. And it's one of those things where I don't think anyone in his life would expect Lachlan to be as deep as he actually is. I've always known life is a fickle thing. My brother opens a door and my mother dies. A gun is fired and my father bleeds out in prison. A single nail rips through my tire and I'm almost flattened by a train. I've never taken life seriously because it's never been mine to keep. My clock was always ticking, but I never bothered to hear it. Now it's a blaring noise that constantly reminds me that I only want one thing out of my fleeting time on earth: to love and be loved by Stella Wright. The intensity of that realization is enough to make me scared of death for the first time in my life. I should say I am also a member of Summer's Patreon, which I hardcore recommend. And I got all of these except Hate Me because I needed that sooner, as being part of one of her tiers of being on her Patreon. So I really do recommend that. And that's Tapping Tuesday.